So, good morning, good evening, good afternoon to you, wherever you are in the world. Here, of course, I'm in Perth, Western Australia. If you're not aware, my name is Anna, and obviously, I create the content here on this channel. Um, I'm going to be talking about basically giving you a channel update today and following up on a couple of stories with last week's yarning and also some current experiences that I've been having. But before I get into that, I just want to say thank you to everybody, of course. If you're listening to these videos, if you're taking the time out of your day to spend some time with me and listen to the content that I provide, I would love you to tell me where you're from, tell me what kind of content that you're interested in, or just even say g'day. That would be very much appreciated. Just a reminder, if you're new to the channel, I do put timestamps in, and even if you're a returning visitor, you may actually forget, but I put timestamps into the description so you can jump to the parts that interest you. You might not be interested in my yarning and waffling. You might actually be more interested in what content I'm going to put up on the channel. So either way, I have documented it for you. But without further ado, what I'm going to do, after saying thank you to you for being part of my journey, is jump into and follow up with the story that I was telling last week about a message that was channeled through from children. Because children, they're just, I remember saying to somebody, if you ever doubted your own guidance, out of the mouths of babes comes the truth, or out of the mouths of young people who have not been led or tainted or whatever, when we allow them just to be who they are, they come through with some amazing information. So I'll give you an example of what happened many years ago for me with one of my children. So this particular story actually relates to my eldest daughter at a time when I think she was probably about 11 or 12, because I had at that point in time decided that it was time to start teaching her the skills and actually getting her to develop her gifts a little more on a conscious level, because before then she seemed to just be able to bring information through. She saw spirit, all of this kind of thing, and she was able to communicate certain information. So what I had done with a friend, we were having a chat about it, and we decided that this particular day I would take her down to the park. I mean, of course, I asked her permission first. I said to her, do you want to learn how to use the tarot? She said yes, because at that stage she was doing pure mediumship, if you like. And she also was able to communicate with spirit guides, I've got to say. She could see them and she could actually translate messages from them. So anyway, long story short, in this particular instance, we decided to go to the local park. I was living inland, I was living in Kalgoorlie. If people know this area, you'll know that there's only the one park that you can actually go to. And in the middle of the day, you don't get a lot of people turn up there because it gets too hot. But I knew where there was, shall we say, some nice big trees. I used to go there regularly, where we could sit in the shade and just do a little bit of playing, if you like, because that's what I used to say to the kids. We're just playing. We're playing with the cards. We're seeing what we can come through. Now, just to by the by, I used to test her quite regularly from a mediumship perspective as well. And I never ever led them. So there's a strategy to use if your children are showing gifts, and that is you don't give them the answers. You can perhaps know something. In fact, actually, one of the things I used to do in the simplest version was saying to the kids, I'm going to hold a question in my mind, and you have to give me the answer. All right? And I'm not going to tell you what that question is until after. So that's how I tested them. And to be quite honest, she was accurate like 100% of the time. But anyway, so we go down the park and we're sitting there, myself, my girlfriend, my friend. I'd say girlfriend, that could lead to all sorts of thoughts in this day and time. She was a mate. Okay, so me and my mate and my daughter are sitting there under a tree, blanket spread out, playing with cards, shuffling them, oracles, all of this kind of stuff. And anyway, as we're playing with them, or as we arrived at the park, we saw that there was a couple sitting way over the other side of the park, just a gentleman and a lady. And anyway, we sort of looked at them and thought, maybe we shouldn't do this. And we thought, no, I think we're okay. We can do this. It's not going to disturb them, and they probably won't be able to see what it is we're actually doing anyway. Well, where I'm going with this is, after a little while, the couple actually got up and started walking, and the gentleman came up and he said, oh, I see that you're playing with cards. Are you a psychic? Now, at that time, I wasn't actually offering paid services, and I certainly didn't have confidence in my gifts. I was still developing them. My friend pointed at my daughter and she just said, no, this is the gifted one. And I think, one of us turned around and said, I'm not sure she can give you the answers you might want or need. And anyway, he said, well, can I participate? Can she do a practice run on me? And I said, well, if it's all right with her. So I've looked at her and I've said, did you want to give it a go? And she said, yes. And so with that, she tried to get a message for the gentleman. So I should mention that I also screened it, if you like, to a level. I said to the gentleman, look, do remember, if you're going to get her to give you a message, that she actually is a child. So is it too complex? I mean, we want to keep it simple for her. And he said, oh, no, it will be simple. He said, it's not going to be complex. And it's certainly not going to be conflicting for a child to try and get me a message. Now, very quickly, she started to look a bit disturbed. She looked uncomfortable and she started to be confused. So I knew that she was having clairvoyant visions. And of course, as a mother, you get that protective element come in that says, I hope this is not distressing. So I asked her if she could tell us what was going on for her. And she said that she was confused. So I said, well, can you tell us what's confusing you? What's going on? She said she didn't understand. She'd asked the guides to give her a message for this gentleman, but she wasn't sure. She was doubting what she was seeing. And I said, well, tell me what you're seeing, because I thought we might be able to work it out. And she said, I'm just seeing ants. She said, and I don't know what it means. She said, but they're running up and down this branch. She said, you've seen them, Mum. And I said, yes, as you do. I know what you mean. She said, well, there's all these ants. She said, and they're running up and down this branch. She said, but there's one that seems to be a little bit on the outer. So, of course, we go, well, please explain. So I wasn't able to find a real video to portray what it was that she was seeing in her mind's eye, if you like. So you'll have to use your imagination a little bit here as well. So what she said was she was seeing this ant that was running up and down. There was all of the ants running up and down a branch, and then the ant in question, who was obviously the one that she was observing the most, was running up and down a leaf as well. And he'd come to a wall, if you like, because if he ran back towards the group, he was not able to move. He was stuck because they were all running in one direction and he didn't want to go that direction. He knew that direction wasn't the right way. So then he would run back down the leaf again, and the leaf would end. He would come to a dead end because that's where there was no further branches for him to run to. So he was getting very confused, she said, and he started to be really upset. And she said, so of course she's talking this through. She's like, he's at the end of the leaf now and he's very confused. He doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know whether or not he should jump. He's scared that if he jumps, he's going to fall and hurt himself. She said, but then if he runs back the other way towards the other side of the leaf, he can't actually get him because there's all these people running past. So then she said he's just running back and forth along this leaf. She said, and I think he's getting courage. And then she started to sound a bit concerned, because she's an innocent. And she turns around and she says, oh no, I think he's going to jump, Mum. He's going to do it. And I'm like, okay. She said, but he's frightened. She said, he's very frightened. And then she said, oh, here he goes. And then she said, oh, he's jumped. And then she's actually tapped her heart. She's gone, oh, thank goodness. She said, he's okay. I said, what do you mean? She said, well, there was another leaf that was underneath. She said, it was a big jump that he had to take. She said, and where he was frightened he might hurt himself, he actually made it to this leaf. And then she started to laugh and she said, oh, Mum, he's so funny. She said, he's bouncing up and down like he's on a trampoline. She said, but it's starting to stabilise. He's okay. That's all right. Now he's going somewhere else now, but he's okay now. Okay, so just leaving that there with you as a thought. The gentleman, of course, has listened to this. I, of course, don't know what this is about. So anyway, the usual process is, is there any more information that you would like? Do you want it to try a bit harder? Do you want to see if there's anything else that comes through for you? And of course, he interrupted me, just, put his hand out on my arm. And he said, no, that is perfect. I have got my answer. Thank you. Thank you to my daughter. He says he's very grateful, right? Now, I can't remember whether it was directly after we met on that day or whether it was later on in the future, because I actually did meet up with him a few weeks later. which is funny because I'd never met him before. But anyway, what he did say to me was the answer that she gave him was reassuring for him. It gave him faith. He explained to me that he was stuck in a situation in Kalgoorlie and that he was at that point where he's just so fed up with everything. He wanted to chuck it all in. He wanted to chuck his job in. Actually, I just realised that was very Australian. He wanted to resign his job and relocate to the city without a job to go to, which of course is quite risky. But he was actually concerned, obviously, that he might not be able to find employment, that finding a house or somewhere to live might also be problematic. And he was concerned about the impacts of his decision if he decided to do that. So we discussed the fact that actually, I think it was on the day that we met at the park, because I recall that we talked about the fact that what she was showing us in her vision was what we call the leap of faith and that trust in the universe that everything is going to be okay. The guidance of that message was that, he could expect some upheaval if he was brave enough to do the jump, but that it would settle. It wasn't going to be a long-term disruption or stress. There would be some ups and downs, and that's to be expected when you make a big decision in your life, but that it would all settle down fairly quickly for him. And so it was safe. So either way, he felt encouraged anyway to go ahead with this decision. But also, like I said, I bumped into him a few weeks down the track, probably, I don't know, in hindsight, maybe 3 or 4 weeks later. We just ended up in the same place waiting for an appointment somewhere, looking at each other and quite blown away and going, oh my goodness, it's you. And so we talked for a few moments before the appointments, and he said to me, just in this conversation, this is how reciprocal energy works, right? While we were sitting there, he said to me that he was so appreciative. He said, if there is anything I can ever do to help you, please let me know. And I looked at him and I said, you know what? Thank you. First of all, I said, oh no, I'm good, thank you, as you do. And then I said, you know what, actually? I said, you just told me that you work in such and such a place and that you do X and Y and all the rest of it. I said, I'm very confused about something because I'm getting conflicting information. There is a person who is saying one thing to me with their mouth, and I believe it because obviously I'm a trusting person, too trusting sometimes. And I said, and yet I keep getting messages in my dreams that are quite prophetic. They're almost like nightmares. Actually, if I wanted to be explicit about this, I was having dreams of a snake in the grass, literally. And then this snake would rear up like a viper and it would hiss at me and it would have this person's face on it. So it's quite frightening. Anyway, so I said to the guy, I keep getting dreams about this person. I told him, and the guy's mouth hit the deck, as we say. His jaw dropped open. He said, you don't need to tell me who you're talking about. He said, you don't need to give me the names. He said, because I know the way you describe this person, I know exactly who it is. He said, your guides are amazing. Listen to your guides. This person is not trustworthy. Okay, they have this two aspect to them. And I've tried to take that with me going forward, that when I get that internal conflict and when my guides are giving me messages about one thing and this other person in front of me is showing me something different, that's called, in mental health, a space of cognitive dissonance. Now, we do have to be careful with this, all right, because there is a difference between a nightmare and our fears, and to have pure guidance. And that is part of what we have to learn as we develop our skills. So, yeah, I do have what I call my seeing dreams, my normal dreams, and just dreams. So I'm pretty sure I made mention last week that I got carried away and I paid way too much for a crystal. By the time you added freight and all the rest of it, it cost me about 80 Australian dollars, which is absolutely exorbitant. But anyway, what I've done is put together some images here for you. This is because as I'm revisiting the crystal content, I'm reminding about the starkness of my current collection. So a bit of background here. I lost the bulk of my collection a number of years ago, and that was because I had to travel interstate and I was relocating. So I had the car packed to the hilt, shall we say, and I was such a lover of crystals, I travelled everywhere with them anyway. And so I may as well say somebody who is no longer in my circle did put some pressure on me to leave some items at her place when I went interstate. And at first I resisted, but then I saw the common sense of what she was saying. There really was no space in my car. It was literally packed to the hilt, and we knew that there may be times I might need to actually sleep in the car on the drive across, because I was actually driving 3,000 odd kilometres to get to the new town and to my family members and that kind of stuff. So basically, I left behind a box and a suitcase and took with me, of course, I never left behind all of my collection. I took my favourite bits with me. And I left some of the bigger ones, some of my bigger, more precious items I left with her. Anyway, I jumped forward a couple of years, and apparently they had all become lost while in her care. It's too long a story to go into for this video, and personally it actually doesn't do any great good to go into it. But where I'm at now is, because I'm putting together these videos, I've realised that I actually need to bump it up again so that I can actually draw upon that personal experience of the energy of the crystals to share with you. And my situation, of course, includes the fact that Stan, who was my old supplier, he's passed away now. Now, I knew that everything I got from him was going to be really good value and always high quality. But anyway, so where we're at is I've been doing some purchasing online from suppliers that I'm not familiar with. They're new suppliers, and at the moment I'm kind of doing taste tests. Now, it's a good job that I went and looked at my orders again before I left my feedback, because I've been a bit disappointed by the whole lot, I've got to say, but it is a learning curve. Now, what I do recommend for people is, when you're purchasing online, take a look and see how big it is. Get your ruler out so that you get a bit of an idea. So these are my experiences of being stung doing crystal buying online. One is the freight for the nummite that you see up the top on the left-hand side. Now, I will do a video about that, but I've actually stopped wearing my nummite for now. It is actually a very powerful crystal, but it brings up a lot of anger. A lot of repressed anger comes to the surface with it, in my experience. And this is the one that, oh no, look, I'll save the information about nummite for when I actually do that video. Okay, now the other one that I bought that arrived in the post yesterday was peach selenite, which I wanted to have as part of my collection. Now, suffice to say, I was very disappointed with it. Okay, when I looked at it, I thought they are tiny pieces. They are far smaller than what I expected. But when I went back and looked at the order, what I actually ordered, I saw that while I'd paid for 2 and ordered 2, the supplier had sent me 3, because obviously they weren't the same size as what were advertised, okay? And they certainly, let's say they were different. So my tip with buying selenite is not only look at the length, if they say 5 centimetres or 10 centimetres or whatever, look at the length, look at whether or not they are cut on either end, or if they've got a more natural, authentic break or split in them. Look at the width. So if they say it's 10 centimetres, what is it by? 10 centimetres and 1 centimetre across the width, or whatever, 10 by 1 by 1? Or is it, I don't get that kind of detail. Now, the other disappointing factor for me was because I actually had been given a piece of chiastolite, which is the third image on the top. I had been given some by a prospector that they had found when out prospecting, and that was part of the collection that went missing. So what I did was I actually bought one piece from the same supplier. So I've not from the nummite. The nummite I bought from one supplier, and all the rest of these images on here I bought from the same supplier. Anyway, the chiastolite came through, and it was pretty shoddy quality, I must admit. It wasn't like in the photograph. But as I say, once again, what she did was she gave me an extra piece. Now, look, I don't like that, I've got to say. If it's inferior quality, just put it on your advertisement, not the best quality, and mark the price down, rather than saying it looks like this, and because you're getting a bit that doesn't look like that, we're going to give you an extra piece just to keep you happy so that you give us a positive review. I don't like that. I would rather have fully honest, transparent advertisement, so I know what I'm expecting, because I actually was very disappointed by the chiastolite, but I respect the fact that the lady tried to compensate by giving me an extra piece. The other one was the brown calcite. this is because I'm putting together the videos on this, okay? I actually have never had brown calcite, but I thought after looking at the properties, I like the idea of having some. Excuse me while I have a cough. So that one came through, and it was far smaller than what I expected. Hardly exciting, riveting stuff, but I've got one as part of my collection now. The honey calcite actually came through. It's a beautiful, beautiful quality. I feel in hindsight now that I've got it, it's a little overpriced because it's not that big actually, but it's still a really good quality piece of honey calcite. So I'm happy with that. The Iceland spa that I bought, um, once again, very good quality little piece, but little being the operative word. Um, I'm sure I must be able to get a better supplier somewhere if I really looked into it. What was the major disappointing fact for me was actually my abalone shell. And I'm replacing an abalone shell. So I've had it before and I know how wonderful it is. I have got the most motley looking piece of abalone shell I think anybody could see in their life. Not only have I paid a fair whack for this, I actually am now going to have to treat this myself. So I've been doing a Google this morning on how I can get this horrendous, crusty white stuff off. Not only that, um, I'm actually going to go back and have a look at the photographs that she's given me because the abalone shell that I've been given actually has a couple of breaks in the outer lips, if you say, and that is not what I expect when I'm paying top dollar for. Um, it can be called PowerShell or it's abalone shell, but either way, when I pay for that, I expect to see this is what this right image is that all of that white stuff is taken off. Now, the reason why I want that white stuff taken off is it's scratchy and it will scratch the surface and damage the surface of anything that you put it down on if you don't have a tablecloth on it. But anyway, these are my new crystals, and I'm just giving you some feedback there. So when we speak about, out with the old and in with the new, which is the approach that I've actually taken to the crystals, it was time for them to be replaced. I got most of those in the early parts of the 21st century, shall we say. They were all pretty old, those crystals. But the thing is, too, round about the same time, I also got my first tarot deck. Well, just so you know, this deck here is not my first one. It was my favourite one. It was the one that actually worked for me, with me, when it came to actually delivering and communicating messages. Because at the end of the day, tarot and crystals are just tools as well a lot of the time. So where I'm going with this is the air may have been blue when I found out what had happened. My little boy Toby, okay, so he's still a pup, really. He's like having a 2-year old. And what happened was I was making some videos, and all of a sudden I got up, I thought, oh, he's been quiet for a little while, as you do. And it's like, what has he been doing? Well, what he had been doing, you may have seen this photo, but it's actually pretty impressive. If you're a returning visitor to the channel, you may be aware that I actually do tarot nights. And so when I go out, I wrap my well, I do wrap my crystals too, but I wrap my tarot cards in silk, and I then have them all wrapped up in velvet, if you like, a tablecloth to go over it, so that I can go out and take them with me. Now, what had happened was I had left them in the bag, and because I had been reshuffling, I put the bag on the floor, apparently. I say apparently because I now realise this in hindsight. What had happened was he actually pulled the bag over, he unwrapped the silk and everything else and got my tarots out, and then he chewed them. Well, I was not a happy camper, okay? Initially, the air may well have been blue, and there was this whole, oh no, as you do. And then it was kind of like this quiet resignation. What can you do? It's done. It's done. And then I sort of thought to myself, you know what? Actually, it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. These cards were on their way out. They were so old. I already had a replacement deck for them. I just was holding on to them. I was resisting, if you like. So, anyway, where I'm going with is these ones, actually, I think I need to bury them, to be honest. They need to be put to back to earth, ashes to ashes kind of thing. I don't know if people normally bury cards. I'm not sure that I would do at all, but this particular deck is a bit like old friends who have reached their expiry date. And what will happen is I need to attune my new deck to be able to start using it, and I'll be doing that over the next few days. So, before I go into the channel content update stuff, the information, I want to talk about just briefly. I've got a few technology issues. Now, some of it might be internet connection. Not really. I've changed service providers. I think that that's okay as far as it goes for Australia. But what I've got is a couple of issues with the way YouTube is loading the content and the fact that there's no means there for me to actually change it and make it look better. And I'm talking specifically about the shorts, the way the shorts are loaded. And I just don't feel that they're looking as good as they could be because I can't select the thumbnail for the shorts. So I'm going to be loading them. I'm going to reactivate the Facebook page and I'm going to start putting them up there as reels, as well as on YouTube. But I just figure, you put the time and effort into creating a reel and trying to make it visually attractive, and then to not have it being portrayed the way that you would like it to be is a little problematic for me. What else can I say? I'm not sure that I can do lives on YouTube. I still would like to, for reasons I'll explain in a moment, but it's about having a stable connection. And although I've now moved my internet technology over to what we call 5G and the satellite, I think there's still some delays with it. It might not be that great. So I will have to test it at some stage. Now, once I've attuned the deck, my new tarot deck. Oh, goodness me. And once I've got on top of the crystal content, I will start to do the tarot reading offers again. But I will never be doing them like what I did in the past, which is all day, every day, and that kind of thing. I'll only do them perhaps once a week, perhaps twice a week on special occasions. And it will only be for people that are subscribers of the channel or of the page when I start doing the offers, okay? So, in regard to the Crystal Magic playlist, obviously I'm working on this content very intensely, and you will see, no doubt, as I go along, that I probably will continue to buy more crystals as well, just to have that fresh understanding of the crystal. Oh, you know what? I forgot to put on that crystal page. One of my major disappointments was actually buying some lavender quartz. I wanted lavender quartz. I've always wanted it. The image looked so this is one of those things where the photographs don't do justice, and I'll be putting this up as feedback. They call it lavender quartz. It has or lavender rose quartz. The photograph showed it looking not pink, shall we say, and it's arrived in the mail, and I've looked at it, and to me it's like, that's not lavender rose quartz. That is not by any stretch of the imagination lavender rose quartz. It's rose quartz. End of story. So it was kind of a misname, a misphotograph, and I will just be, I've paid too much for it, whatever, life goes on. Anyway, where I'm going with this, I distracted myself, is as I continue to make the content, I probably will continue to expand my crystal collection so that I can give you current feedback on what I'm seeing on the market, fair prices or whatever, if I find a good supplier, stuff like that, and just some tips on, you know, well, I guess sharing my experiences of what's happening when I buy is going to inform you when you do your own buying. Anyway, moving on. So this week, of course, you will have seen hematite go up. You will have also seen red garnet go up. Now, there is something about this image, and I've mentioned this, which is that some people are tactile. And when it comes to crystals, this is the most bizarrest thing. Some people are lickers, they like to lick the crystals. I don't like to lick all crystals, but certainly when I look at the background tumble stones here, it actually makes me want to grab a piece and run it across my tongue. I don't know why. I think it's because it looks like toffee or something. But either way, I would not recommend licking crystals because certainly if you're in a retail store, you don't know how many other people have licked them before you. And I bet that's something you didn't know about. But yes, a lot of people that buy crystals lick them when they're at the store. Next week, we're looking at bornite, a beautiful rainbow coloured crystal. But I'll leave that. I'll let you find out more about that when you watch the video, okay? The pyrite video is also going up next week, and I'm not going to talk too much about pyrite right now. Suffice to say that this image, we have got what is called a pyrite disc, or some people refer to it as a pyrite sun. For me, I like to call it a pyrite sun. Now, I love that. Okay. Yeah, I don't have one of those anymore. I really would like one. But what I will be doing based on my new learning is when I do a purchase of this, I'm actually going to do a measure. You know what I mean? If they turn around and say it's the diameter is X, I will be working out what the diameter is. And I'll certainly be looking closely at the actual images in the hope that I actually get something that's really quite nice. Because if I'm honest, I think I want one that is probably about 10 to 15 centimeters across. Actually, probably if I look at my calculator, all right, I'll stick with 10. I want one that's about 10 centimeters across, which is 100 mil, folks. Okay. That would be wonderful. So before I close out for the day, I'll just remind everybody that we do have a number of playlists now, and of course the universal law, the spiritual law one. I think I'll promote that one today because it provides some really good insight for contemplation or discussion or whatever, and certainly as a starting point for developing your own awareness and spiritual understanding of spiritual law, shall we say. Because at the end of the day, if you don't understand karma, you're going to know it by looking at the law of karma. It's going to make more sense to you, and you can meditate on it and work out, does it mean just that for you, or does it mean more than that for you? Is there past life karma? Is there karma in the form of consequences? Excuse me as I clear my throat. Then, of course, we've got the angel playlist, which, I love, and that gives you tips and strategies and that. I've got the mainstream, because of being a social worker, I've got the mainstream content up there that is considered evidential based information, which is on the health and wellbeing, the self-help channels, okay? So plenty of food there for you to sink your teeth into. So, my friends, thank you very much if you've made it this far. Thank you for being part of my journey today. As I say, please feel free to leave your own comments and thoughts about anything I discuss on the channel. Please say hello. Please even consider letting me know where you live, not your address, your town. Are you on the northern hemisphere, the southern hemisphere? Do you have tips on crystals and purchasing and that kind of thing? But in the meantime, just thank you very, very much for being part of my journey. I'm going to close out today. I'm going to wish you a blessed day, blessed week. Take care of yourself. See you on the next one. Bye bye for now.